11 p.m. Strange BMW in my driveway, my shower running upstairs, someone else's perfume in my foyer, and that's when I knew my HOA president had crossed the line. I just dragged my luggage up the circular driveway of my inherited colonial mansion, 2 weeks early from my European business trip, expecting nothing more than a hot shower and sleep. Instead, I found my house lit up like Christmas, music drifting from my living room, and someone singing badly in my master bathroom. The smell hit me the moment I unlocked my front door. Expensive floral perfume that had been haunting neighborhood board meetings for months. The same cloying scent that followed Veronica Whitfield around like a toxic cloud. My HOA president wasn't just making my life hell with citations anymore. She was literally living in my house. What would you do if you found someone living in your house while you were away? Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Marcus, I'm 47, and 6 months ago I inherited something unexpected, a 4,200 square foot colonial mansion in Millbrook Estates worth $850,000, completely paid off. My Aunt Dolores lived there for 30 years and left me her pride and joy. After my expensive divorce cleaned out my savings, this inheritance felt like winning the lottery. Every morning I'd wake up to those old radiators warming up, finally feeling home. But every paradise has its snake. Veronica Whitfield, 52 years old, HOA president for 8 years, real estate agent, and the kind of woman who pronounces community standards like other people say national security. She lived in a smaller townhouse on the edge of our development, nothing like the sprawling colonials where my inheritance had landed me. And that seemed to stick in her craw. The sharp click of her heels announced her first visit. I was unloading boxes when she appeared, clipboard clutched like a holy relic. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, though her smile had all the warmth of a tax audit. "I'm here about your mailbox situation." Turns out my aunt's classic black mailbox violated the sacred forest green color palette mandated by the HOA. "The fine is $150 if you don't comply within 10 days, she announced. That was just the appetizer. Week 2 brought a citation for leaving trash cans visible after 6 p.m. Week 6. She complained about my teenage son Tyler's friends parking on the street. Week 12 brought the masterpiece, a threatened fine for excessive commercial activity because my cybersecurity consulting business required occasional equipment deliveries. The pattern was crystal clear. Longtime residents did whatever they pleased, no citations. But Marcus, the divorced newcomer with the fancy inherited house, every move was scrutinized like evidence in a murder trial. My neighbor Beth whispered one morning, "She's territorial." New people threatened her little kingdom, especially when they inherit houses she can't afford. When I booked my 3-week European business trip, I only told Beth and Tyler. Somehow, Veronica found out. The evening before my departure, those familiar heels announced her arrival. "You really shouldn't leave a house like this unattended," she said, her eyes already mapping my foyer. "I could keep an eye on things." "Thanks, but I've got it handled," I replied. Her expression could have frozen hellfire. "We'll see about that." 3 weeks later, I returned home at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, 2 weeks earlier than planned. The London conference wrapped up ahead of schedule. That's when I saw it, a gleaming white BMW parked exactly where my car belonged. My house was lit up like a Vegas casino. I slipped around back using the spare key under the loose brick by the garden gate. Aunt Dolores used to say front doors were for show, back doors were for family. The perfume hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Takeout containers covered my granite counters. Dirty wine glasses in the sink. My wine glasses filled with wine from my cellar. As I crept through my own house documenting everything with my phone, my cybersecurity training kicked in. I photographed the unfamiliar clothes draped over my bedroom chair, different shampoo bottles in my shower, prescription medications on my bathroom counter, blood pressure pills made out to V.U. Whitfield. The sound of running water echoed from upstairs along with what could generously be called singing. "Veronica," I called out. The singing stopped like someone had pulled a plug. "Marcus," her voice cracked. "You're not supposed to be back for 2 weeks. It's my house, Veronica. I can come back whenever I damn well please." She emerged 5 minutes later, wrapped in my bathrobe. "I can explain," she began. "There was a break-in scare. I was protecting your property as community service. I gestured toward the empty wine bottle on my nightstand, a $200 Bordeaux I'd been saving. By drinking my vintage collection and sleeping in my bed? Her face flushed red, but she doubled down. I have HOA emergency authority over vacant properties during security emergencies. It's completely legal. She marched to my home office and pulled out a folder with an official-looking document titled Emergency Caretaker Agreement, complete with what looked like my signature. My background in digital forensics became useful. Interesting forgery, I said, pulling out my phone to record. But document analysis is literally what I do for a living. That's when a toilet flushed in my guest bathroom. Out walked Dave Kowalski in full police uniform. The married father of 3 who lived 2 streets over. The same Dave who'd always seemed like a decent guy at neighborhood barbecues. Everything okay here, Veronica? Dave asked, his hand resting casually on his service weapon. The pieces clicked together. This wasn't just trespassing. It was organized fraud with law enforcement backup. Dave, I said, keeping my voice steady. You realize you're in my house without permission, right? Off duty but in uniform with a woman who's been living here illegally while I was out of the country. Dave's confidence evaporated. She said you gave her permission. Did I give you permission? Because this is all being recorded, I continued. And something tells me your department has strict policies about officers involving themselves in civil disputes. Veronica's face had gone from red to the color of old mayonnaise. You can't prove anything illegal happened here. I smiled for the first time. Actually, I can. The next morning, I called a locksmith first, then started investigating how deep this rabbit hole went. The garage told its own story, tools used and put back wrong, oil stains where they'd parked a second car. Beth knocked around 10 a.m. carrying a casserole. I was wondering when you'd find out, she said. Veronica told everyone you were subletting to her temporarily. She hosted a dinner party here last Thursday, 8 people, catered food. That's when I discovered my security system had been professionally disabled. By noon, Veronica fired her first retaliatory shot. An official HOA notice summoning me to an emergency board meeting that evening. The charges, disturbing the peace, harassment of board members, and threatening behavior toward community officials. The meeting was held in the community center. 5 board members sat at a folding table. Veronica presided from the center chair wearing a navy blazer. The fix was in before I walked through the door. 3 board members were her current real estate clients. The 4th was her cousin Janet. Only elderly Gladys Pembroke seemed capable of independent thought. Marcus, Veronica began with fake concern. We've received disturbing reports about your behavior. Witnesses describe you as aggressive. I'd like to hear from these witnesses, I said. Officer Kowalski has provided a detailed statement, she replied. Dave's report painted me as unstable, making my breaking and entering sound like community service. I'd like to see the board minutes that authorized this emergency caretaker program, I said. Veronica shuffled papers. That's an administrative matter. I'd also like to see the HOA bylaw that grants you authority to occupy member properties. More paper shuffling. Finally, cousin Janet spoke up. We don't need to justify our authority to you. The vote was 4-1 to fine me $1,500 for harassment. They also imposed a $500 monthly monitoring fee. As I left, Gladys caught up with me in the parking lot. She's done this before, she whispered. The vacant house thing. Previous targets moved away rather than fight her. Monday, I walked into the law office of Sarah Morgan, Esquire, carrying a banker's box full of evidence. Sarah specialized in property law and HOA abuse cases. Let me guess, she said. They're claiming emergency powers that don't exist in your bylaws. Sarah's first discovery made my blood pressure spike. The HOA's emergency caretaker authority was complete fiction. 0 references in our governing documents. Her second discovery was even better. The board had never voted on such authority. No meeting minutes, no resolutions, nothing. Her third discovery made me want to frame her law degree. Veronica had been collecting monitoring fees from other homeowners for 3 years with no legal basis. She'd been running a protection racket with clipboards and letterhead. While Sarah worked the legal angles, Veronica launched her counteroffensive. Tuesday brought an anonymous tip to the city building inspector claiming my home office was unpermitted commercial space. Wednesday delivered another complaint about running a business from residential property. Thursday brought the social media assault. Next-door posts appeared about the difficult new resident causing problems. Friday was when Dave's police buddies started their intimidation tour. Patrol cars began cruising my street constantly. Saturday was when I struck back with the nuclear option, recovered data. My security footage told a story that would make Hollywood jealous. 10 days of Veronica entering and leaving my house like she owned it, bringing guests, including what looked like real estate clients touring my property, using my pool, hosting dinner parties. The most damning footage showed her systematically photographing my home's interior with professional lighting equipment. But the digital smoking gun was even better. Hidden in my computer's temporary files were traces of her phone connecting to my Wi-Fi and failed login attempts to access my personal files, financial information, and client data. Sarah Morgan's response: "We're going to destroy her in court." Sunday, Beth organized an informal coffee meeting. 8 households showed up, and we uncovered a pattern of harassment going back years. Mrs. Peterson had paid $800 in fraudulent landscaping fees. The Johnsons had been pressured into using Veronica as their real estate agent. By the meeting's end, we had something powerful, a united community ready to demand accountability. Monday morning brought the discovery that changed everything. Sarah called at 8 a.m. "Marcus, we got the court order for HOA financial records. You need to see this immediately." Sarah had spreadsheets covering her conference table. "Your friend Veronica has been busy. We found $47,000 in payments to vendors that don't exist. Emergency roof repairs during storms that never happened. Tree removal for trees still standing. Every invoice professionally formatted, every amount just under the threshold requiring board approval." I traced the digital money trail. Every fake vendor check had been deposited into Whitfield Property Solutions LLC, existing only on paper and in Veronica's bank account. That's when Sarah showed me the file that made everything click. Hidden in papers Veronica had rifled through, we found her business plan for Whitfield Premium Property Management. The document outlined using temporarily vacant luxury homes as showcase properties for high-end real estate clients. She hadn't just been squatting for convenience. She'd been running a sophisticated con game using my mansion as her personal showroom. The email chain we discovered was even more damning. Correspondence with Elite Estates Management showed they'd been splitting profits from unauthorized use of vacant homes across 3 counties. My house wasn't her first rodeo. But the nuclear revelation was her backup plan, a purchase agreement template pre-filled with my property address and a sale price $200,000 below market value. She'd been preparing to steal my inheritance through emergency lien process. Beth's forensic accounting background proved invaluable. The total theft across all communities is probably over $200,000, she explained. She's been targeting vacant properties, elderly homeowners, and anyone too intimidated to fight back. 6 different HOA communities, dozens of victims, years of systematic fraud. Tuesday morning turned my kitchen into a war room. Sarah arrived with legal briefs, Beth brought her forensic accounting arsenal. "The FBI is interested," Sarah announced. Financial Crimes Division wants to talk about mail fraud. Every fake HOA notice constitutes federal mail fraud. We scheduled a homeowner rights information session at the library. 23 homeowners showed up. 18 different families had been victimized over 4 years. The pattern was clear: Veronica systematically targeted anyone who couldn't or wouldn't fight back. By the meeting's end, we had a united community and documented evidence that even the NSA would approve of. Veronica's response was swift and desperate. By Monday, she filed a restraining order against me, claiming harassment, stalking, and threats. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning. Veronica arrived with a budget lawyer, while I showed up with Sarah Morgan and a banker's box of evidence. Judge Patricia Morrison had the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd heard every sob story. She listened to Veronica's tearful testimony about feeling threatened with patience and skepticism. "Mr. Reed has been deliberately intimidating me," Veronica claimed, dabbing her eyes. "He follows me around the neighborhood and makes threatening comments." Then Sarah stood up with our timeline and security footage. "Your Honor, we have documentation showing Mr. Reed has never been within 500 feet of Ms. Whitfield's residence." The footage was devastating. While Veronica claimed I was lurking around her house, my security system showed me hosting Tyler's study group. When she alleged I confronted her at the grocery store, credit card receipts placed me at a client meeting 50 miles away. Sarah presented audio recordings from HOA board meetings. Every question I'd asked was reasonable, professional, and civil. Judge Morrison denied the restraining order and warned Veronica about filing false claims. But Veronica's desperation was just getting started. Anonymous complaints to my business clients claimed I was under investigation for fraud. Fake online reviews appeared alleging incompetence. Most disturbing was the attempt to drag Tyler into her web. Someone called his school claiming neglect. Then came the child services visit. A social worker appeared with serious concerns. I provided documentation of my parenting arrangements and Tyler's achievements. The social worker's final report not only dismissed the complaint but commended our stable home environment. The false report backfired spectacularly. Veronica's final act unfolded like a disaster movie. Faced with mounting legal pressure, she decided to burn down the entire system. "I'm so sorry," she announced at an emergency board meeting. "Our financial records have been completely lost. My computer crashed and our backup system failed." The timing was suspicious. Just days before the court-ordered financial audit, every digital record had vanished. But she'd underestimated my cybersecurity expertise. Within 48 hours, we'd recovered 87% of the lost financial records, including browser history showing she'd researched how to permanently delete files the morning before her supposed crash. The recovered files revealed the full scope. Email chains with fake vendors, detailed plans for property takeovers, spreadsheets tracking which homeowners would pay fraudulent fines without fighting back. The smoking gun was an email draft complaining about that cybersecurity guy who thinks he's so smart, outlining plans to destroy all evidence. While we were recovering her digital trail, Veronica called a special board meeting to vote on emergency assessments totaling $15,000 per household to cover legal expenses. She was trying to make the entire neighborhood pay for her legal defense. But our community network was ready. 43 homeowners showed up, a record attendance. Elderly Gladys Pembroke stood up with a voice that could shatter crystal. "I move to remove Veronica Whitfield from the board for financial misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty." The vote was swift and decisive, 4-1 to remove Veronica. Cousin Janet was voted off 10 minutes later for failing to exercise proper oversight. As Veronica gathered her papers to storm out, FBI Special Agent Maria Santos walked through the doors. "Ms. Whitfield," Agent Santos said, "we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of mail fraud, conspiracy, and violation of federal wire fraud statutes." The handcuffs clicked with the finality of justice served. As Veronica was led away, she made one last desperate attempt. "This is all because of him," she shouted, pointing at me. "He's destroyed our community with his lies." The 43 homeowners remained silent as the FBI escorted her to their sedan. Tyler looked up from his calculus. Well, that was dramatic. 3 weeks later, the Millbrook Estates controversy had grown into a municipal scandal. The City Council called a special hearing on HOA reform legislation. The packed auditorium felt like a political revolution. Despite being out on bail, Veronica convinced her new lawyer to let her make one final public relations offensive. She took the podium wearing a navy dress, delivering a performance that deserved its own Netflix special. "I've dedicated 8 years to serving this community," she began. "Now I'm being targeted by a vindictive newcomer who couldn't accept reasonable community guidelines. Marcus Reed has used his wealth to destroy my reputation over simple misunderstandings. Several people nodded along. Then she made the fatal mistake. "I have never done anything illegal or unethical," she declared. That's when I stood up. "Before we continue," I said, "I think everyone should see what Ms. Whitfield's property protection actually looked like." The first video clip appeared on the large screen. Security footage of Veronica hosting a dinner party in my dining room, bragging to guests about managing this beautiful property. The second clip showed her rifling through my personal papers. The third captured her coaching Dave on how to intimidate homeowners. The nuclear option was recovered audio of her laughing about that divorced guy who thinks he's so smart. The audience reaction shifted from sympathy to outrage in real time. Detective Lisa Warren stood up. "Ms. Whitfield is currently under federal indictment for mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, and violation of federal racketeering statutes. The FBI investigation has identified victims across 6 different communities." City Councilman Robert Morgan took the microphone. "The legislation before us today will require quarterly financial audits for all HOA boards, mandatory disclosure of conflicts of interest, and criminal background checks." The vote was unanimous, 7-0 to pass the most comprehensive HOA reform legislation in the county's history. Elderly Mrs. Peterson stood up in the back row. "I want to thank Marcus Reed for having the courage to fight back when the rest of us were too scared." The standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. As we file out, Tyler nudged me. "Dad, I think Aunt Dolores would be proud." 6 months later, justice had been served with precision. Veronica pled guilty to avoid trial. The federal judge sentenced her to 18 months in federal prison, 3 years probation, and ordered her to pay $127,000 in restitution. Her real estate license was permanently revoked. Dave Kowalski received 6 months in county jail, lost his pension, and was permanently barred from law enforcement. The civil lawsuit settled for an additional $45,000 in punitive damages, money that went into establishing the Millbrook Estates Good Neighbor Fund, helping families facing temporary financial hardship. Our new HOA board implemented transparency that would make government accountants weep with joy. Property values actually increased after Veronica's removal. The personal healing surprised me most. My house slowly became home again. Tyler and I hosted our first annual backyard barbecue that fall with over 60 neighbors attending. But the ripple effects extended far beyond our neighborhood. Marcus Law, officially titled the Homeowner Protection and Transparency Act, became model legislation adopted by 3 other states. I found myself testifying before the state legislature, speaking at homeowner rights conferences, and consulting with other communities facing similar corruption. The documentary When HOAs Go Rogue, One Man's Fight for Justice premiered at the local film festival and won the Audience Choice Award. Beth established annual community rights workshops where residents learn about property law and HOA governance. The Homeowner Legal Defense Scholarship we established helps law students provide free legal assistance to families fighting HOA abuse. Last year, they helped 12 families recover over $30,000 in fraudulent fees. 2 years after Veronica's arrest, our annual block party has become the event people actually look forward to. This year drew over 100 attendees, including several families victimized by Veronica's schemes in other communities. As I stood in my backyard watching neighbors who'd been strangers become genuine friends, listening to children laugh instead of adults whisper about intimidation, I thought about what Aunt Dolores always said: this house was meant to bring people together. The smell of grilling burgers mixed with Beth's famous apple pie, while Tyler and his friends played volleyball near the garden. For the first time since inheriting this beautiful house, it felt like the sanctuary my aunt had always intended it to be. If your HOA has ever pulled something shady, drop your story in the comments. You'd be amazed how common this kind of abuse is and how often victims think they're powerless to fight back. Trust me, you have more rights than you realize. And sometimes the bullies are the ones who are actually powerless when faced with organized, informed resistance. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear how we helped 3 more families beat corrupt HOAs this year. Remember, documentation beats intimidation every single time. From all of us here at HOA Stories, thanks for watching today's HOA Karen Meltdown. If you enjoyed seeing neighbors stand their ground in karma catch-up, smash that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you won't miss the next HOA drama we bring you.